right, good morning, everybody. Thanks for jumping in. Welcome. If you know someone who should be here and is not here, please let them know that we are about to get started. My name is Ricardo Bettis. I'm the chairman for the Global Opportunities Committee of the Atlanta Black Chambers. Thank you for jumping in. Today, we will be continuing our series on readiness. I just want to do a few housekeeping before we jump into it. Please keep those mics on mute during the session. We'll be taking some of your questions. If you do have at the end of the session, towards the end of the session, you can raise your hand, or if you want to put those questions in the chat, we'll be dropping a poll somewhere mid show so that we'll get your feedback as well in terms of where you are with the discussion. Also, this is recorded, so it will be available on YouTube, so you can watch it later. And feel free to follow us on LinkedIn or any of the social. The Atlanta Black Chamber does a lot outside of the GOC, and you can follow and see what they're up to. You can also subscribe to the channel on YouTube as well. And a few other things I want to give a big shout out to our GOC team, GOC leadership team. There are several things that happened this week. The Colombians celebrated their independence yesterday, as well as I think Liberia celebrated its independence yesterday as well. And so shout out to those who supported those endeavors. I knew that there are a few events that happened in Atlanta with respect to both Liberia and Colombia. As a matter of fact, this weekend, I think they're also the Liberians are having I think it's a family day on Saturday. So that's actually shared on social. You can see that. You can see that there. What you just saw was a recap of our 2025 Go Global conference, and I hope you're all setting to go global this year. If you have not yet gotten your admission, feel free to reach out to us and let us know what you'd like to do. We look forward to having you in town if you're from overseas, and if you're here, we're looking forward to welcoming you. One of the things that we're doing this year is to welcome other business owners from other parts of the country. So Denver is coming into Atlanta to meet you if you're here. We have some folks from Virginia and other parts. I think LA says they want to come, some folks from LA as well. So we have a few people from all over the country that wants to come into Atlanta to connect and simply do business. And that's because we are really executing a very different kind of a conference. So we appreciate that. Uh, we're coming up. This is the last day for Readiness Series, but coming up in August, we are going to be doing a virtual trade mission to Mauritius, Angola, and DR Congo. And we may have shared this before, but we wanted to do this in person. However, we've decided to do it to pivot virtual due to what's happening in the region. So please look out for that information. If you are interested in doing business in Angola, I know some of you are questioning Mauritius. Is it Central Africa? No, it's not, but it's on the Indian Ocean. It's a few hours away from the actual continent. You know, the buildup. It's on the continent, I guess, but it's an island. Beautiful, I'm told. I've never been there, but we'll learn a lot about Mauritius and Angola and DR Congo. There's a lot happening in DRC as well. So if you're interested in those jurisdictions, we would love for you to look out for that communication where where that bit is concerned. So today we are essentially starting our conversation on the readiness. You know, we've been working on our readiness series, so we appreciate you jumping in, and we think it was really successful so far. We've explored what it truly takes last week, what it truly takes to be ready from an investor perspective, thanks to Dr. Harvey and Sabrina Lamb from Wakiza that came through and helped us there. We've talked about international readiness, just developing the mindset and the organizational capabilities to think globally. We've explored partnership readiness already because global success is really built on trusted relationships, and we know this. We've discussed investment readiness, like I said, on understanding that capital and the way capital flows to business that are prepared to receive it. And so that was really good. And today we're going to turn our attention to another essential pillar of global business success, and that's trade readiness. And so many entrepreneurs dream about doing this, going global, and some even believe they're actually ready. But the reality is that international trade is not simply about finding customers in another country. It's about understanding the market. It's about building the right system. It's about managing the risks. It's about developing strategic partnerships and navigating regulations, creating competitive products and services. It's about positioning your business to compete on a global stage. And so today, I'd also like us to broaden that conversation, right? And so, because we oftentimes think about international trade, it's viewed through a single lens and how business from around the world can access the US market. While Americans remain one of the largest consumer market, we get that trade is not, trade is most powerful rather when it works both ways. And so, how do we prepare entrepreneurs here, whether you're here in Atlanta or you're throughout the Georgia or across the country, to become successful exporters, whether you have a physical goods or an intangible service? How do we create stronger relationships where businesses around the world are not only seeking to sell to America, but are equally interested in buying from America, and buying from your businesses and partnering with you and representing you and opening the doors into their own market? And so that's a conversation that we're going to have today because global trade isn't about moving products. It's about creating opportunity. It's about creating jobs and creating wealth. And ultimately, it's about stronger economies through meaningful international markets. So, and to help us navigate this important discussion, I'm actually honored to have and welcome someone who has spent his career helping business expand internationally. And our guest today is Eric Johnson, CFE. He's a global team leader in agribusiness with the U.S. Commercial Services and also the executive secretary for the Georgia Department of Export, District Export Council, rather. And so, Eric, welcome. Thank you for jumping in. I'd love to give you the chance to introduce yourself. This is the Power Hour, we call it, where the hour usually pass and the power continues. And every week we try to inject a little bit of power. Folks come here to refill, and hopefully we'll have that discussion today. So thank you for coming.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to join you. And I'm always very thrilled to talk about international trade. So I am Eric Johnson. I do work for the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. I'm actually based in Atlanta, Georgia. I have lived and worked all over the world, so my background's pretty diverse. Currently, my role is to support agribusiness companies or companies in advanced manufacturing. So I'm our industry team leader or industry director, and I work with a team globally, my colleagues in the US, but also all over the world, those individuals who work for the US embassies and consulate generals. I just took over this role. Previously, I had worked in the franchising space for almost a decade, so I am a certified franchise executive. I know incredibly well what it takes to work with services or business models to help them achieve entry and scalability anywhere in the world. My background prior to being with the Commerce Department, which has been almost 16 years now, is I worked with three foreign governments. I've spent a great deal of time on promoting foreign direct investment attraction and joint venture projects, typically in food manufacturing, but also in the wine industry. I have also worked in wine importation and distribution. I've done a great deal of work with multi-unit restaurant groups around the world. So my background's a little bit different, and I am a very strong proponent of bilateral trade. I understand that it does have to go very much both directions. So hopefully that gives you a window into my background and insights, and looking forward to seeing where this conversation takes us today.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, Eric. So let's start from the bottom and we work our way up. Let's talk about this trade readiness and what does that actually mean? What does that actually mean to you? How do you explain that to people?
Hmm. So I think anytime we talk about being ready for trade or being export ready, I think it really comes down to understanding that a company has actually crossed the line from having mere interest to having established a team or a division that's actually capable of executing uh, international sales. They can do so without breaking their existing operational excellence or compliance, and without it being a drain on their cash flow. Ultimately, they can reliably sell, ship, get paid, and support customers anywhere in the world. And that's a pretty simplified definition. I would tell you the one thing, in my opinion, that I'm always looking for is market readiness. Companies that have been able to evaluate demand, they know how to go about identifying target markets. They actually know how to articulate their value proposition when they're meeting with interested trade partners. And you'd be surprised how many companies, wherever they might be in the world, they don't understand how to talk about themselves quickly, succinctly, and to capture interest. That's one of the most important things I try to work with everyone I meet.
Yeah, that's interesting. So this idea of developing that skill to be able to talk about yourself, and a lot of times that comes with well, I find that I practice writing,
Mhm,
write about myself everywhere I can, so it becomes this kind of thing. I think biblically it says if you want to know, you have to write it. You have to write the
mhm,
vision down, right? And so it starts there, is what I'm hearing. You
mhm,
start by practicing to understand who you are and what is that you're doing, but most importantly, the market, understand the market itself. So,
mhm,
so, so market intelligence then feels like this is the thing where most people don't get that prevents them from doing what they need to do. So,
mhm,
so from your experience, how do you know whether the business is actually ready when you talk to them
mhm,
and they talk back to you? Like, how do you know that, okay, this one is ready and this one maybe
mhm.
not?
Well, around here in my role or my office and with the companies and our staff that I work with, I hear from brands or companies all the time that come very well prepared. They already have a business plan and they can articulate what that plan is, and they can tell me what is their, and there is an industry term related to franchising and licensing that I do like to use. What is their white space for development? Meaning, what is currently blank out there on the global map? Meaning, over the next, say, 12 to 18 months, we know that we have every ability to enter into three markets. Maybe it's Canada, Mexico, and Colombia, or wherever that might be. And they can articulate to me why their products or their brands will resonate with those consumers. That in and of itself tells me upfront that company's ready. They've done their homework. They have a team that's capable and adaptable and forward thinking, and they've already put pen to paper. They've already manifested what they want to accomplish. Now, I do work with a lot of small and medium entrepreneurs or companies, and small companies and entrepreneurs sometimes they find their way to me without knowing a great deal about how to organize themselves. They don't know what markets are going to be more receptive to their products. Perhaps they come to me and they tell me that they've never exported outside the US, but they know someone in their home country, or they have a family member in country, whether it be Pakistan or India, or maybe it's Angola. Now, that that's wonderful. It's great to have an idea, but when you haven't yet exported or sold even into Canada or Mexico, where it's easier to support, that raises a few red flags for me because sometimes markets like India or Pakistan are very difficult to export your products. And obviously, to travel there, it takes a great deal more budget. So I'm looking for a few things like that. And if you're coming to me and you're asking me to design your export strategy or to tell you where to export, sure, I can give you ideas. But at the end of the day, I don't work for that company and I don't take on board either the risk or the reward. So I try to help companies gain better confidence and spend some investment of their time in developing a plan. That's a long way of answering that question. So hopefully there are some gems that were contained in that.
Yeah, it's interesting you say Canada and Mexico, and maybe there are folks who on the call might be saying, well, Mexico, I don't speak Spanish, so how does that work? But it's
Right.
interesting you say because they are borders to the US. And
Mhm.
your response, you indicate that that's probably one of the thing you look for in terms of, the way that folks are thinking about export. Going to
Mhm.
the lowest hanging fruit per se is
Mhm.
Canada and Mexico. Is why is that sort of what you look for versus say folks who are connected to the continent or connected to other parts of the
Mhm.
world, like you said, and wanting to get into those jurisdictions first?
Right. Well, it does come down to the actual company and what products they produce. So there can be exceptions. I would say that Canada and Mexico are logical because they're literally next door to us. Historically, we've had incredibly strong trading relationships with both countries, given USMCA and prior to that, NAFTA. So there are some very important reasons why those markets work very well. It's also easy to travel there. You can get to Mexico City from Atlanta in under 4 hours. You can get to most cities in Canada in under three. Toronto from Atlanta is very easy to get to. Now, you asked an important question about why not the continent of Africa or maybe not the Caribbean. And in some regards, the Caribbean is also just as easily accessible, and there are a lot of opportunities there. Now, the opportunity will be likely not as great as if you're selling into Canada, but there are nuances, and we take those into account. Now, if you're looking at a market and you're concerned about the fact that you don't speak Spanish or the local language, there are some countries where I would say don't let that concern you as much. Mexico, I will tell you, most businesses, they either have an executive or someone on staff who speaks English. English is prevalently spoken. And I'd also tell you, don't get so concerned or worried about everything that you hear on the news that Mexico is unsafe. Actually, Mexico is quite safe for most Americans. Depends upon where you're traveling. Also, keeping your street smarts about you and just being aware. So, one thing I do hear all the time is that we really do want to export. We really only want to export to countries where they speak English. That can be pretty limiting. And sometimes just because a country speaks English, it doesn't mean it's going to be any easier. I can tell you that with Canada, obviously, the great bulk of Canadians speak English. In the province of Quebec, they speak French. And in Quebec, that market is going to be more difficult to achieve market entry than the country of France. But Canadians culturally are very different. So I wouldn't make assumptions that it's going to be easy. You just need to make sure that you know how your product's going to be received, how to go about doing that, and be prepared. Uh, I would say the same thing is true about Australia or the UK. Australians are very nice and approachable, but they're also incredibly savvy marketers. And when we look at some of the service brands, licensing or franchising, I think it's important to note too that they have a very significant number of their own homegrown brands that domestically our companies will go up against. So you have to take that into consideration. Every country has its own unique set of variables and why it's more likely or easier or more challenging. And it really comes down to your being open to asking questions and finding the right support staff who will help you navigate through.
Yeah. And now the US, it's obviously has the strongest economy in the world. But and I think there are 30 million businesses here, according to the stats. But a few businesses actually do export.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in our community, well, I looked at one data that says was about 1,452 companies and or 0.03 black businesses for the sake of this conversation that actually does export. Why do you think that is?
I think a lot of times companies don't export simply because, number one, they've never needed to. They haven't had to. They're very comfortable selling to accounts and customers that they've long been selling to. They've never really needed to grow. I think also companies are perhaps maybe not as culturally aware as they need to be. I think also sometimes when I hear from companies who've never exported before and they're now interested, it's because they're finding that their domestic market might be slowing down or drying up, or their product is facing some sort of physical obsolescence, and they're wanting to extend the run of that current product or line by going into a different market that doesn't necessarily need the most up-to-date technology or products. Um, Everyone has a different answer, and I will say that there are so many reasons why, but I think it comes down to awareness, and I think it also comes down to helping companies be open-minded and not being so concerned about, oh, exporting is very challenging or complex, or there's a significant amount of risk involved. I think even though we, as Americans and American companies, whether they be white or African American owned or however they are owned, are a little bit more conservative and more risk averse than you might expect. I mean, for the fact that we are very strong marketers and very savvy, we're very much inward thinking because our country's massive. We haven't had to actually think beyond our borders. And I'll maybe wrap this up by saying a statistic that's out there, and 85% of the world's consumers reside outside of our US borders. And that means 92% of the world's economic purchasing power are outside our borders. If we haven't learned what that means yet, I think all of the companies that we work with, wherever they might be in this country, they need to truly understand what that can mean for them over the next 10, 20, 30 years, or when they're looking to transition ownership of their company to the next generation, whenever that might occur.
Yeah. And so for those who are listening, watching today, they've never actually done this export thing before.
Mhm.
What's the very first thing they should do?
Mm, wow. That is a really excellent question. I would say the very first thing they should do is number one, identify who are the local partners in your state or community from an economic development standpoint that you can actually reach out to and learn from. An individual like myself, or perhaps it's the Georgia Department of Economic Development, or the local small business development centers who have an international division. In my opinion, or even working with an organization or a chamber like the one that you have so incredibly put together over the years, or the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce. Find your way into that network of individuals because we all work together We are all trying to help companies be more efficient, be more aggressive, be more scalable, and be more successful longer term. And then we can open the door to all the other things that you need to actually put together. And we all occupy slightly different spaces. We offer different things. My organization, the US Commercial Service or the US and Foreign Commercial Service, we have a significant bandwidth all over the world with push and pull to help companies. That's where I would start.
Yeah, no, and one of the things that I love about the U.S. Commercial Service is that whenever, at least when we go on delegation,
Mhm,
we always have a POC within
mhm,
on the ground in these jurisdiction within
mhm,
the embassy in many cases that is a part of the department that can actually help us
mhm,
with our interest on the ground. So that's a really good point. One of the things I wanted to explore was around sort of the idea of bilateral trade, and you alluded to it earlier.
mhm,
And so much attention is given to just helping companies enter the U.S. market. A lot of times,
mhm,
it's the largest consumer market in the world. We get it, but you said something very interesting just now that 92 or so percent of the economies are actually outside of the borders. So because
mhm.
we have so many customers outside of the borders. How do we encourage more businesses, more American small businesses to view themselves as a global supplier?
Hmm. Well, I think we have to, number one, help them establish and build greater confidence in themselves on the international scene. I think we have to help them understand the level of importance on promoting US innovation, quality, and reliability. That right there speaks volumes and truly does mean something the world over. We may not be the cheapest, but we typically are going to be the greatest quality, the most reliable, and our clients will stand behind their products or their services where other international competitors are more concerned about selling cheaply, quickly, and then disappear. Um, that's something that we definitely always focus in on. And I think we also have to provide them with access to our foreign partners all over the world and understanding the right marketing assets and just having access to predictable support. That goes a long way.
Yeah, and then what role do you think then partners like overseas partners play then in helping create that reciprocal sort of trade opportunities rather than simply just
Mhm,
viewing the U.S. as a destination market?
mhm. Well, I think anytime we deal with partners anywhere in the world, whether it is the American Chamber of Commerce in Accra in Ghana, or maybe it's the Indian Franchise Association, whatever that group might look like, we need to view all of those engagements as relationship building and establishing rapport and support and looking for ways to support both sides of the coin. Obviously, we have things that we want to sell from the US around the world, but we also have a great need for things that are unique, that meet our growing culinary appetite, or technology that's not currently available here. And establishing just that general awareness. I think we have to bring together individuals globally that are like-minded who really do see that globalization has made a positive impact on our environment and it's not going away anytime soon. If we can bring all of those individuals together and help them support and sort through their pain points, the sales typically are going to flow if we have the right people in the room.
Yeah. And so I want to talk a little bit about sort of building an export business. We like to say that you can go global from anywhere, and folks are on the
Mhm,
call from all over. I see some folks here from the UK and from, I think I saw one of our leaders here from Zambia. And by the way, just congratulations to Gideon. If you see him, he's now the president of the Zambia Chamber of Commerce out there in Lusaka or Lusaka Chamber. My bad. But what characteristics do successful exporters have in common?
Actually, quite a few. I think that number one, they're organized. They have the ability to gain management commitment and support to have an international division that are ready, prepared to give dedicated staff to actually focus on international sales, meaning they can focus on developing channels into regions of the world versus focusing on domestic sales and then rushing over to handle um, opportunistic or more reactive inquiries. I think as well, other things that make them successful is they are culturally curious. They are able to adapt and localize, and they are able to communicate their business plan and goals. Um, there's so many things that successful exporters have in common. Those are just maybe a few, but the greatest thing I would say is you have to have support internally. You have to be able to fund your international activities, and you have to have the right product or service for a go-to market strategy, and you have to provide aftercare. And providing aftercare makes or breaks any company anywhere in the world.
Yeah. And speaking of funding, one of the things that we talked about last week was the investment readiness. And we have a program that we're supporting heavily to help folks to because funding is a no-brainer. Like you will need
Mhm.
that. I wanted to just bring up Dr. Harvey real quick for two minutes just to talk about how the Concept Capital program is going, because that's one of the readiness program, if you may, that we're helping entrepreneurs to as they think about going global. That's a path that you have to cross, this funding capital path. But are you actually ready for it? And so, Dr. Harvey, uh, quickly jump on, tell for those folks who don't know about the Concept of Capital program, if you would just talk to them. And I think you have a session this afternoon at 12, a community session. Would you just go ahead and share that for us?
Yeah, greetings. So glad to be with you on today. Eric, thank you for your presence with us on today. In our Concept to Capital program, we have the opportunity for our organizations to work on becoming fundable because we know at some point in their businesses, they will have the need for outside funding. When it comes to small businesses here in the United States, some estimated, 80 to 90% of them are unbankable per se. And so what we're doing is we're able to start really from the fundamentals for whatever stage they are in terms of their own business development, in terms of their own maturity as an entrepreneur to understand what does it take to be fundable and allowing people to come and match really through our funding access network for your stage of development who align with the appropriate investor to achieve their strategic goals. And so we have those calls weekly, noon Eastern time. That's 7 p. Eastern African time. We are a global community. And so we make it available for persons to join so that we can have an understanding about our partnership, investor, understanding, aligning with investors' interests and the like. And so this conversation we're having today is most appropriate. But again, noon Eastern time. We have information in the chat. You can send me a private message if there's any challenges in registering. But every week it is a complimentary call of service to our community, and we hope to see you there, noon Eastern time on Wednesdays.
Thank you, thank you, Doc. So Eric, I want to ask you about service businesses. Can service business export just as effectively as companies selling a physical product? And could you give us some examples of what you've seen?
Mhm. Well, I think services companies can be just as successful. I don't think there's anything inherently that different. I mean, we're either typically talking about a tangible product, a food item, a cosmetic, maybe it's a manufacturing line, but there are so many services the world over, whether it be McDonald's, KFC, Ford Motor Distribution, Orange Theory, um, retail brands that expand through licensing. It really does come back to the same thing. It comes back to being organized, disciplined, export ready, having access to the right teams. And what is different is this: when services companies are wanting to either sell business or professional services, whether that be construction consulting or architecture consulting, or maybe it is trying to come up with some other examples here. Companies that want to, I don't know, replicate their dance studio for a different part of the world. What does it come down to? First of all, articulating very clearly your value proposition. What are you providing to the market? Why is it going to be relevant in Zambia or Egypt or Costa Rica? And who traditionally have been your core customers that you bring into your business? And do they exist in that country? Being able to articulate how you can diversify your pricing strategy to be relevant in any of those markets versus what you currently either encounter domestically selling in Nigeria or domestically selling in the US. All of those unique selling features and your ability to adapt and localize are going to be what enables you to succeed. And being able to tap into the right ecosystem of contacts who have the right linkages to buyers, whether they be importers, distributors, prospective franchisees, or prospective manufacturers who want to arrange a licensing arrangement with Six Flags of America or Disney or Bob Mackie. What does it take? It takes one thing. It takes organization and communication. You can succeed if you write it down and you build a plan, you manifest it, you put all the steps in place, you can succeed. I'm not going to tell you you're going to succeed within 6 months. Sometimes it can take a year. The more complicated a service arrangement, usually the longer it's going to take to actually get into certain markets around the world.
Yeah. And I know AI is changing every industry, right? And it's a conversation that everybody's
Sure.
having.
Right.
So how do you see AI changing international trade over the next few years? If it has,
Mm.
I'm sure it's already changing, and a lot of people here use AI. How do you, what are your thoughts around that?
Look, I think AI is certainly it's here to stay with us. Now, will AI look the same thing 12 months from now? No, I think we're learning a great deal. I think everyone is currently adapting and growing with AI. I think it levels the playing field all over the world with access to information and to contacts. Am I worried that AI is going to replace all of our jobs? No. Do I think it's going to replace some functions in employment? I do. I don't think it's going to be the behemoth that changes the new world order the way I think some people have been running around worried on news articles or in interviews via social media or big TV channels. I view it a lot like what we experienced either with Y2K back in the year 2000 or the dot-com era. And everyone was worried and investing significant money at that time where they might have needed to be a little bit more structured on where those research projects were going because it didn't really get a great deal in return at that point, and there were some missteps along the way. I see right now that companies are spending lots of money on AI initiatives without having a clear goal in mind on what they're wanting to accomplish. People are stepping back from that just slightly. But here's what I will say: AI has been with us for decades. And there will be a lot more enhancements going forward. It's enabling us all to be quicker, faster, smarter, hopefully more insightful, hopefully more curious, and more ready to actually meet challenges that come our way because time doesn't slow down and business challenges are not getting any easier. We have to utilize all the tools and resources out there toward our benefit. And I think AI can very much be one of those things, just like automation, just like um, contactless ordering applications. We learned a lot during COVID and the pandemic. So many things were rolled out to us at that point in time that are very much part of the AI spectrum. Mobile ordering apps, food integrators, Uber Eats, DoorDash. So many things are all linked to and related to AI that we've already implemented into our world order. I think we as human beings are reluctant to grow and change, and we have a lot of concern. But where we don't grow and change and constantly diversify our skills and our knowledge, that's where we all start to stumble. So I'm positively, opportunistically welcoming AI into what I do. And so is
Yeah.
our organization, which is good.
Yeah, and I kind of like to think of AI as money, right? If you are good, if you're a bad manager, more money is going to just make
Right.
that a bigger problem, right? And so whatever you are today, when you add AI to that, it's actually going to amplify that problem. So just
Mhm.
making sure that you get to the heart of that. The U.S. Commercial services I know offers an incredible amount of support that a lot of
Mhm.
the businesses here simply actually don't know that actually exist.
Mhm.
Can you walk us through some of the resources that are
Mhm.
available that they can lean into? And I gather pretty much all of these a lot of these resources are complementary for
Mhm.
businesses.
There's quite a few things that are free of charge, and I think our organization is wonderful to tap into. I think we're fairly well kept secret, which I never like hearing. I want more people to actually know who we are. Some of the things that you can take advantage of. We provide trade counseling that's completely free of charge. If you are a company here in the US, you can reach out to a trade manager or representative like myself, who will be your account manager going forward, who will help you understand the world of exporting. They will have lots of questions for you about your line of business. They will essentially be an extension of your team, and they'll be looking for opportunities for you and encouraging you and giving you access to that international playing field that you're looking for. So there's a lot that can be said about the trade counseling piece. There's also a lot of market research and market intelligence that is published and updated annually. We have our country commercial guides that are published on all countries around the world. They are atomized chapters of information, 10 different chapters that essentially can give you knowledge and awareness of what it would be like to actually export your product or service into those markets. You can find those country commercial guides and research reports on our website, which is just purely www.trade.gov. Again, it's trade.gov. It's pretty simple. Just type in country commercial guide or market research, or do a similar search on Google. Usually you'll get the results back in the top one or two hits. We also do two other major things. Another thing that is free of charge is we provide assistance for companies who are selling products that might get products stuck in customs or ports around the world or run into compliance issues. We can typically help resolve that through our connections with US embassies and consulates. And then importantly, when it comes down to identifying who can be your trading partners around the world, we do offer paid services for matchmaking, where we very clearly get to know your line of business. We get to know who operates most effectively in your You're a business who typically you're looking to identify a reseller, an importer, a distributor, an investor, and we literally go out based on our ecosystem of contacts and shop the opportunity to them. We validate and vet companies that want to get to know you. We do cost recover those services, but they're not as expensive as you might expect, especially if you've ever worked with a consultant who's done that for you. So that's just a little bit of a window into what we can do. Some of the other things that we provide that I think are important for international companies. Our offices at the embassies and the consulates are also wonderful resources to provide information on the US market and US companies, but also identifying opportunities for trade shows where you can take part on traveling with groups to visit the US or trade missions. And as well, those individuals who work for us at the embassies are very insightful. They're almost like walking encyclopedias, if any of you remember what an encyclopedia might be. So tap into them because that's what they're there for.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm going to launch or poll now, ladies and gentlemen. So if I know sometimes if you're on your phone, you may not see it, but you have to be on the lookout for it. So we're going to launch a poll. If you have any question, by the way, as we come on the home stretch, please raise your hand. We can take it, and then we have a few more questions for Eric before we wrap up with the hour. Dr. Harvey, I see your hand is up. The poll is out, guys. We'd love to kind of get your temperature on some of the conversation that we're having. Doc?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you very much, Brother Chairman. Eric, thanks again for your sharing and presentation on today. If I may, can you share a word really around sort of governance, right? You know, that there's sort of policy and these regulatory environments the same way many persons outside the country might have concern, being hesitant to come and invest in America. You know, we certainly have the same concerns going abroad. Could you share a word about that, please?
Yeah, I think that in terms of governments, ultimately, US companies tend to have greater compliance. Most of the companies that we work with have an export compliance division. They are bound by a variety of different things. The US Foreign Practices Act. They're also bound by obtaining licenses or approvals to export their goods or services around the world. So there are a lot of checks and balances working with US companies. In terms of governance, I just think that you have to realize that sometimes that can also make an impact on the cost of what you're looking to purchase, and it's there for a reason. And that's also the reason why also I think longer term you've got greater reliability in a partner with an American firm versus some others around the world. Is that kind of what you're wanting me to kind of like address, or do you want me to go into a little bit of a different direction?
Surely that's excellent, but also, here in the United States, our administrations change.
Mhm.
And
True.
so we see that similarly in other countries as well. And
Right.
so having that type of sensitivity and awareness,
Mhm.
for persons seeking to invest, partner with us here, and also as we're seeking abroad,
Right.
that type of awareness, I think, is perhaps helpful.
Right. You know what I will tell you about our current situation. Administrations and geopolitical issues change very frequently. I have seen a lot of changes over the past 2 years, both good and maybe some things I didn't necessarily agree with. But even during that time frame, I've seen a lot of steps to correct prior decisions. Things have opened up more. I think that longer term, this country is incredibly stable. Things will change, likely over the course of the remainder of this year. And I think as we look at all political systems, all political parties understand what is required for re-election. And there's a great deal of stability within that resolve. I don't have a crystal ball, neither for elections or economic corrections. I will tell you that things go up and down over time. The pendulum swings back and forth. Just as, look, I'm originally from Florida. I will tell you, if you don't like the weather today or this hour, give it another hour or another day, it's going to change. Now, that might be a little light-handed answering the question, but what I will say is this. We are where we are at right now in July of 2026. How will things look later this year or next year? Everything's constantly in a state of change. I think our country needed some changes. I think our country always needs change. Um, I think every administration brings about change, and I think we see longer term that things that are successful take root, things that are required usually gel appropriately, things that didn't necessarily work have a way of also being ameliorated or corrected over the longer term.
Yeah. And thank you, Doc, for that question. And Eric, I've got a few more before we wrap up. And the
Mhm.
poll, guys, we love to reveal the poll when we're like 50% or so complete. We're at 31% now. So those of you who haven't given it a shot yet, please do so. I know someone had asked about a checklist. I think you may be able to find some of that. Someone was asking about preparing checklist of for export when you're seeking a new market. And so if you have anything you can share with that as you respond. I wanted to ask you, Eric, a lot of us worry about getting paid
Mhm.
when
Right.
we do international stuff. Shipping internationally can be a
Mhm.
pain, and there's just these legal compliance, or just simply just these costly mistakes sometimes that we make.
Mhm.
How can we reduce risks in this trade, in this business of trade?
Right. So, first of all, mitigating risk financially or shipping, I think it comes down to, again, knowing who are the resources out there to you. I would recommend for all companies, number one, have a contract in place. Never conduct business on handshakes. I've seen more drama and trauma in international trade over verbal agreements or handshake agreements. That doesn't work any longer. So have a distribution agreement in position. Uh, Another thing to mitigate risk, register your trademarks and intellectual property yourself for your company. Don't allow anyone else to do that on your behalf because you're likely going to run afoul problems longer term. As you're getting ready to sell container loads of product, or maybe it's pallets of product, know how you're going to get paid. I would never sell product on consignment. I would either want payment upfront if it's a smaller order. Don't take payments via credit card. Credit card transactions can be reversed. I've seen that occur. It's not as frequent right now as it used to be. I would also recommend that you have a very strong relationship with a local bank that understands international trade here in Atlanta. Synovus, Bank of North Georgia, Regions Bank, a couple of others are appropriately aligned to support your needs in that regard. You'll find similar banks all over the world. I would say working with banks to understand letters of credit and what that means to protect your receivables is important. If you're going to work with companies over the longer term, I think investing in the relationship and investing in due diligence to know truly who you're engaging with is vitally important. Because if you're going to extend credit terms or trade terms to someone, things might be going really well for the first year, but in the second year, there may be challenges. And if you haven't backed up those trade terms with finance products through the Export-Import Bank of the United States or other similar agencies, then you're going to run into some issues. I'd highly recommend all U.S. firms get to know the Export-Import Bank of the U.S. They're not technically a bank, but they provide two very important products. They provide trade finance insurance, meaning they will insure your receivables in certain countries around the world up to 90% if you don't get paid. Now, there are some subtleties and some nuances there that you have to meet. I am not a trade finance expert, so I'm not going to try to walk anyone through all of that. But another thing that Exim does provide, Exim Export-Import Bank of the U.S., they provide buyer's financing. Sometimes for U.S. companies, if it's a sizable enough order, they will actually extend a loan to your intended buyer if they are approved, meaning when they extend that loan, they're going to write that check out to you, the U.S. company, and then your buyer will pay back the Exim division. There are international organizations, much like Exim, all over the world. So depending upon where you might be residing, look into how you connect with them as well. So something else I'd say, and this is a long answer, but I think it's important with Incoterms, that's something that you must know a great deal more about because you don't just put merchandise on a truck or a train or in the US mail or a courier and send it around the world. There are some things that you need to take into consideration. Who assumes liability and risk when product leaves your doors or your warehouse or a port? Is it you or is it your buyer? And Incoterms are shipping terms that will basically stipulate who assumes what level of risk. Ex-Works pricing is a good starting point and indicative to negotiate terms on an agreement and a purchase order, but those Incoterms further protect the interest of both parties and should also further be negotiated in any arrangement. That's a lot to throw at everyone, but Ricardo, I'll let you ask any additional questions too.
Yeah, no, thanks. And I think my final question, I want to reveal the poll. We got 48%, so maybe 2% more, and then I'll share. But a lot of you are obviously US companies looking to export. There's about 80% of the responses so far were US companies looking to export, but 20% of international companies on the call seeking to enter into the US. And so we lack of awareness comes in as the top challenge, 71%, and funding is coming in second at 62% of you say funding towards scaling is a huge challenge. So that's very interesting and a simple question of whether you're trade ready. Only 22% of you on the call says that you are. So there's pretty much a lot of work that we have to do. It's about 80% of you says no, you need help preparing. And this is the reason we do this in service to the community to help you to do that. One final question, Eric, if you had one message for these guys today, what is that message? And particularly for those who believe that this idea of trading internationally is for the big guys, it's for the only for the large corporations. What's that one message you will say to those folks today as we wrap up?
Actually, it's pretty simple. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume you can't do this. Don't assume that you're too small to export. Don't assume because you're not a McDonald's or a Coca-Cola of the world that you can't viably identify markets, partners, and sell your products successfully. Don't take things for granted. Don't assume things about a market. Don't assume that Canada is going to be easy. You just have to be very curious. You have to ask the right questions. And you have to find your way to someone like myself or my colleagues or others like Ricardo or our friend Dr. Harvey, who can point you in the right direction. Never assume that you can't do something. Ricardo, you mentioned something earlier on that I really loved. writing it down. I think when we write things down, we're much more well-intentioned on accomplishing our goals. I think anytime we manifest things into this world, we're much more likely to accomplish and or have the world bring that back to us. And don't assume things, put yourself out there. But put yourself out there in an organized manner with the right team to support you, know how to mitigate your risk. And you might have some missteps along the way, but you're eventually going to succeed. And if you've got the right team behind you, they're going to find a way to help you succeed.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you, Eric. Well, the hour has come and we're five over, but the power is now within our people. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your passion for helping business compete globally. We certainly appreciate it. The biggest takeaway, I think, from today's discussion is really to understand that export isn't reserved for the Fortune 500 companies. And by the way, the Fortune 500 companies were just like you, they were pretty small back in the days as well. And so don't forget that they weren't born big. Uh, with the right preparation, though, we think that if with the right preparation, with the right partners and the right resources, small businesses or any business can be successful in markets around the world. And so throughout this readiness series, we've learned so much. We've learned that success in global business doesn't happen by chance, and it requires preparation. It requires preparing the organization, preparing your partnerships, your access to capital, and now your ability to trade across borders. So as always, our mission in GOC is really to help you move the needle forward and go from local potential to global opportunity, right? And so we encourage everyone who joined us today, all of you, take advantage of these resources that Eric had shared. Continue building the relationships across the borders and begin taking concrete steps. I see our folks from Egypt is here on the call as well, but take these steps towards international growth. Thank you guys for being a part of the Power Hour. Looking forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place, as we continue to help you build up your capabilities so you can compete, you can thrive in this global marketplace. Thank you, everybody. We really, really appreciate it. We're going to go out with our regular conference recap. Hope to see you soon. Thank you again, Eric. Appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eric. I'll be in touch. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.